Well, hi there, boys, girls, and those in between. I am going to pitch to you a Transmedia story, which would lead into a project to start writing and illustrating a webcomic called WishTales. The idea came from wishing you had something beyond your grasp and exploring what would happen if your wishes could become reality. One of my common wishes is for a lasting relationship, or just a furry companion like a cat. Now, if it were a magical cat, you can see how I made the leap to a story like WishTales. The story at its core is about finding companionship and exploring the richness it adds to the journey that is a lifetime. So the initial core themes and subjects that I have thought about for the story so far are yearning for more or something else and being careful what you wish for, respecting other animals as equals. In a way, we would be experimenting with microdoses of story which decentralize and destabilize human narcissism, because whether we like it or not, we're not the most important things to exist. By simulating and foregrounding different ontological frames of perception, so trying to base the story panels of the comic from a different perspective, from an animal's perspective, an animal other than a human. Making unlikely friends by judging via actions, not appearances. Positive and explicit expression of queer relationships and identities. The comic is for adults working into the taboo-friendly medium that is webtoons or Tumblr. Linking multiple storylines in different timelines using flashbacks, giving a longer history to the WishTales story world. And the key themes, to sum up, are supernatural suspense and horror genre, including magic, monsters, and good or evil spirits, heroes and travels to other, or heroines, and travels to other dimensions, a theory of souls, mixed with a slice of life genre, including the things that you have when you talk about family, love, or at least caring for others deeply, pets, small homes, holidays, and adventures. So when you put all that together, it's a kind of non-serious look at the horror and supernatural suspense genre. There are consequences, but they're not going to kill our characters. Okay pals, let's talk about the structure before we go any further. Seeing as the structure of a transmedia object really influences how the story is told, we should definitely have a look at this diagram that I have cooked up. In its current model, the Transmedia story will be a comic that is a vertical read with a single column of panels, which best fits publishing on a site such as Webtoons, Twitter or Tumblr, favouring a mobile platform audience. Webtoons would be the main story medium, or say Tumblr. Twitter the second medium, in which the main characters, a cat named Wishtail, Wish for short, participates in a social media with a human named Jay. New comic ideas and teaser posts are posted by either social persona and are run by a group member each. With enough engagement and contributors, a side story podcast can be added as an extending medium for small conversations and backstory reveals, which can be referenced in the webcomic as innocuous objects, characters and artifacts which deepen the story, like a tape recorder that Jay grabs from the bunker in episode 1. The old grainy recordings on the recorder would start off the podcast extension, and Jay eventually makes more tapes based on experiences and research he does to resolve complications within the core canon. This has become a huge project, so it really already requires more than one person to make, or one person with quite a lot of discretionary time to give to the project to bring it to life. I've seen some of the creator resources that are on the Webtoon website, and there is a lot of advice to say that you need to have 3 full episodes ready to go when you start publishing, so that you can introduce your characters, your world, and have your readers get to a certain point of the story where they are allowed to subscribe to your channel, that is, or to your webtoon. But with more than one person, a lot more of these elements become possible. Now, in addition to the current model, it's also possible to add an Instagram or a Tumblr posts, maybe a dedicated Instagram. They're actually just paintings of the characters to develop them as transmedia story objects, posting them so that your audience interacts with them, interacting with the story world, thinking they are kind of like selfies, but they're really also a feedback gathering device. Travel photos from the main comic, which are basically just location speed paint, so the backgrounds, because you're going to make those anyway. So while we're talking about the structure of this transmedia story, how it spreads across multiple media, how all of the group members could be involved, already we've set out some roles, like there is somebody to curate an Instagram, there is somebody to illustrate, there's somebody to write stories. There's also this thing where illustrating and then painting those drawings actually kind of takes a long time, so you can't just draw off the top of your head. If you don't use references, you're literally drawing blobs of color that don't really have a realistic shape, and the departure from reality is so great that people don't really understand what you've drawn, and they're just not aesthetically attracted to it. One of the artists suggests you use something called Design Doll, which is the program that I've screenshotted here. You can create a body shape, pretty much any kind of body shape, and position their limbs and features to enact actions that you want to illustrate. And then you can set the lighting, the texture of their skin, and you can draw over the top of these images. Let's talk quickly about the story. WishTales is a cat that has been around for millennia. He has been in Egypt. He has a separate timeline and plot where mini comics and flashbacks feature him in that timeline. He is involved with the main character's great-great-grandparents who were archaeologists, and then he finally meets Jay and Benj in our current timeline of around 2020. And there are events planned out on the timeline that I'm showing you, events that will become comics, that will be illustrated, and stories that can be written for them. I've got quite a long timeline. You can see that there's a beginning through to a middle, and then an end. Let's look at some contemporaries as creative existing works which support some of the concepts that I'm putting across in the story, and perhaps even the transmedia conception of the story. Mr. Daryl Toe started a comic called Tobias and Guy. It was a webcomic that started in 2015. The comic was published on Tumblr, which favored short stories in vertical format. The story explores a gay relationship between a human and a demon, their adventures together, and the slices of life from both characters with their short backstories enrich the world. The stories were often non-consecutive, as an overarching plot wasn't really the point. They were like windows into the world of an adorable internet couple with personalities that mediated sensitive ideals about alternative sexualities, relationships, personal struggles, and friendships. The comics were vertical format, optimal for Tumblr's infinite scroll aesthetic. While the artist-author was making fairly regular contributions before a period of burnout, the original site on Tumblr was deleted, and the strips have since been rediscovered in their reposted forms all over the web. Many have been rescued from the void here in a fan's Google Drive, which is where I'm showing the comic to you from. They became a kind of surviving transmedia work simply by the sharing and saving of a story world and characters among so many fans. Fan art based on the comics is still being made today. The key medium is a digital webcomic adapted or cross-posted across web platforms, with periodic illustrations from the growing canon, plus the responding fan art. Toe's other works include digital illustration commissions for card games and co-created print comics, which certainly qualify as transmedia. The artist continues to make work from his own fictional worlds, which show evidence of fantasy and horror intertextuality. He is currently releasing backstories for his original characters Alex and Gabe. He has developed their story world for over 13 years through detailed concept artworks to mini-strips and comprehensive personality planning. Now finally, after all of that, we get to the proof of concept. So, like I said earlier, illustrating takes a long time, and I'm not like a super great comic artist as it is. Drawing these characters, it's kind of something new to me. I really need to practice the form of bodies and how action looks when it's dynamic in a comic. So I've sketched out a few rough parts of the scenery, of the scenes. On the screen currently you can see the intro page. I think that it would be pretty cute to have the cat sitting on like a desktop counter, maybe like in the antique shop where they meet. And the cat is touching Jay, who's the other person there. He's got the glasses, kind of a nerd. Touching Jay on the nose. And that creates the bond between them. When you finally learn what WishTales the cat really is, you get this deeper appreciation for why it's a special link that they've made, because it's not something that we associate with normal relationships between a pet and an owner, or a animal who could be a pet but is in fact its own person, own being, who leads its own life. So I'll just quickly scroll through those for you. It works, of course, as a vertical webcomic. So you experience the intro page with every comic, and at the end of every comic there is a link to your socials, which would more importantly include the Twitter, where the two characters come to life and are interactive. The second scene that I've come up with, I'll just let you guys view while I read the dialogue. Come on, Jay, it will be fun. You're being a scaredy cat. It's abandoned. Jay's thinking, this has the makings of a horror movie. Sure, Benj. Exploring a creepy old nuke shelter. Couldn't have picked a more romantic haunt for date night. We go to the next panels. Property of the US government. Restricted area. Keep out. Why would a bomb shelter be restricted? It's unlocked. Let's find out. And then the story continues from there, but I haven't had much time to actually sketch it out, which is super embarrassing. But I can tell you what actually happens. The WishTales first episode will be a date night featuring Jay, our human hero, Benj, his boyfriend, and a concealed WishTale, our pet protagonist. It's Benj's turn to pick the outing, and he decides on exploring a derelict Cold War bomb shelter instead of past a night at Luigi's. He's a history buff and loves digging through ancient places. So they go through this bunker. Jay is enthusiastic and adventurous, and shares that enthusiasm for historic myth and legends, but was surprised by the location. They do some cute stuff while they're there. Jay finds a tape recorder and grabs it for later, hoping to find something on the tapes. They hear a sound and are quite frightened, like visually in the panels. They turn around quickly, they jump back, there's all of these exclamation, onomatopoeia and visual jump marks. And they turn around to discover nothing but an old toy bunny dropped long ago by a child, presumably in a bomb drill. They figure it must have been a rat in a pipe. But the panel perspective shifts, and we are shown a semi-concealed creature hanging from the roof with wicked teeth and glowing eyes as it wakes up. Something has disturbed its slumber. It could smell humans. No, something similar. Or was that just the decay interfering with its senses? Humans nonetheless should not have come here. Most humans can read keep out signs, but maybe these ones are stupid. We jump back to Benj and Jay, who laugh at their terrified reaction and take the moment of exhilaration to do some cute stuff and talk relationships. Benj suggests that they've been going out for a while, and the wild explorer antics aside asks if Jay would want to be his boyfriend. Jay nervously replies that he is going to ask him the same thing, and he thinks this date is awesome even if it is hair-raising. In the end, Jay and Benj decide to leave, sensing the atmosphere was suddenly creepier, and they take the toy bunny and the tape recorder with them as memories. Jay has this curious streak where he wants to find out what's going on in a place, so he's always looking for mementos. We watch them leave from a strange vantage point now, directly above and behind them. As they close the bunker door and their torchlight fades, a new panel introduces WishTales, somehow gripping the high concrete roof, pondering them. He has begun to change into a more recognizable form of a cat. We see a clawed, vicious paw shrink into a cat's cute little pads. In the dark, Wish's final thoughts on the curiosity of visitors. He wishes to know more about these humans. If the project is too big to manage, I may consider taking it forward solo as an oral storytelling adventure with artworks for location setting and character development. I have had some success with this using a recorded voice and Creative Commons music with an artwork I made to represent the story. So the music, I think that works best for this kind of a story. Most of the time it'll be like chill beats, kind of like the stuff you listen when you're studying, nothing orchestral, nothing dramatic, except when we get into this more suspenseful and horror things, and then we want the tone to be lower. So in that way I can develop a more musical and visual story, and they can go hand in hand. They would be posted to Instagram or perhaps even Tumblr to begin building the story that this WishTales adventure could be if it were a full comic.